Imam said the most truthful of discourses is Kitabullah, or the Book of Allah, and the most trustworthy word is Taqwa, or fear of Allah. The best of the community is the community of Prophet Ibrahim. The best way of life is the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The remembrance of Allah is the most glorious of all things. The best of all narrations is Quran. The best acts are those requiring the highest degree of will and determination. The worst acts are those based on innovation. The best way of life is the one adopted by the prophets of Allah. The most glorious death is the death of the martyr. The most wretched blindness consists of going astray after finding the right way. The best acts are the ones that yield benefits. The best guidance is that which people may be able to follow. The worst blindness is the blindness of the heart. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Allah commands justice, the doing of good, and liberality to kith and kin, and He forbids all shameful deeds and injustice and rebellion. He instructs you that you may receive admonition. فَمَنْ يُرِيدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Those whom Allah in His plan will to guide, He opens their breasts to Islam. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. O you believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, and do not die except in the state of Islam. وَتَصِّمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And hold fast all together by the rope which Allah stretches out for you, and be not divided amongst yourselves. كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. You are the best peoples ever raised up for mankind, because you enjoin the right, forbid the wrong, and you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، يقول الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Is related by Jabir that the Apostle of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, neighbors are of three kinds and three grades. One, the neighbor who enjoys only one right, and so far as the rights are concerned, he is the neighbor of the lowest grade. Two, the neighbor who enjoys two rights. And three, the neighbor who enjoys three rights. The neighbor who only enjoys one right is the polytheist, that is, the non-Muslim neighbor, with whom there is also no family ties. And as such, he is entitled to only the right of a neighbor. While we're reading about neighbors, in the middle of this hadith, I want to stop and say that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had on neighbors encouraged the Prophet, peace be upon him, so much about the neighbor that the prophet began to think that if he does a couple of more enjoinings, he's going to make the neighbor part of our inheritance. That he's going to say, and your neighbor is part of your inheritance. One smidget here and a smidget there. Of course, that didn't happen. And it goes on to say, and also a Muslim, it says the right of the neighbor. And the neighbor who has two rights is the neighbor who is also a Muslim, and as such, he has the claim as a neighbor, and another as a co-religionist. And the neighbor who has three rights is the neighbor who, in addition to being a neighbor, is also a Muslim and a relative. And as such, he will have one claim as a neighbor, another as a co-religionist, and yet another as a relative. I read this because we live in what's called a neighborhood, and we have neighbors out here. There's another hadith, caring for the instructions of neighbors, but I won't read all of the hadith. But basically, it's saying that we live in a certain neighborhood, and we know that the hadith was telling us about three kinds of neighbors. You know, one that's a regular neighbor, and this hadith is talking about polytheists, but the people out here are multi-theists, non-theists. They're just neighbors, right? They don't fit in one category. All you know is that our neighbors are misguided. We know that by what we see. I guess maybe the cold or maybe the wind or something has quieted the people down across the street, right? They are neighbors. Okay, during Ramadan, they send for plates over here, especially if it's a seafood platter or something. And some years ago, they would send the kids over to get, but they are neighbors, so fine. And we know they are neighbors, and they're in this neighborhood because they're out there with a barbecue pit up until yesterday, the day before. And forget about the white folks saying that, let's keep your space. But I mean, they would be right. I say, hey, they're defying the white man. They're saying, the white man says stay some feet away. They're just saying bump you. And I mean, when you read in the news, you won't find none of their faces or names in the news about getting any disease or anything. But they might have carried it to 10,000 people. But their behavior is such, and we know the characteristics and the history. They ain't gonna get nothing. But their whole families might be dropping like flies. Not that Negroes get it quicker and Latinos and American Indians are dying like flies. But that group, they need guidance. They need guidance, and we're not being arrogant by saying that they need guidance. They need guidance because it's evident that they need guidance. And they are our neighbors. And the other hadith will say it is incumbent upon us as Muslims to help lead, guide, train, evolve the neighborhood and the people in the neighborhood. Because there's a part in the Quran that talks about Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, joining the right and forbidding the wrong. That's part of our hidayah. They need guidance. We have gotten some hidayah, some direction. We know that if you want to have a better, stronger family, maybe you could avoid alcohol and drugs. That'll give you some kind of chance. And then the teaching that teaches you to appreciate each other. You don't want a woman just to have sex with her and then throw her away and go about your business and leave 3 or 4 children behind. You want a relationship. You want a human relationship. You want a future together, right? They have to be taught that because they're not going to get it anywhere else. They won't get it in the movies. They won't get it in the books. In everything. And now, if you watch TV and the movies, they kind of done got it to where if you're not funny, if it ain't one man kissing another man, then you regular people that's something wrong with y'all. Y'all are regular, right? You're regular human beings, right? They give you the idea. The young people coming up, they don't know no better now. If we don't mention it to them from time to time, what the real balance in nature is about what human relationships are, they will never know. Why? Because everything they see. And in D.C. it's worse than other places because in D.C. a few years ago the statistics was 50% of the male population of D.C. was either in prison or on paper. That means they got them on paper waiting to send them to prison because they got them on paper, they're going to wind up there soon. And so if you looked at the lifestyle of men and women, you would realize that the system created that environment and circumstances. Because there wouldn't be no men here. And then even I used to look at the bus stop and I used to look at the cars going into town when I first got here, and it seemed to me, just a reasonable count, it seemed to be that out of every 2 men that was going to work downtown, it looked like it was 8 women. And it was so that back in the 70s, when I was in prison, I happened to be in a prison in Florida. And one of the brothers in jail with us, it was one of these modern jails, FCI Miami. The jail actually had a big pool, not a pool, but a doggone lake in the center of it. And you didn't have the little bitty windows, you had a big window. The window looked like it was about 4 by 8, same size as a big piece of sheetrock. They didn't have gun towers in that. They had a little road around there. Of course, you couldn't get out of there, but I mean, it looked like a nice place. Even they had to send a game warden out to pull an alligator out of the alligators in the big lake, and we'd go out of the dining room, and we would throw food in there, and the fish would eat it. But it was a brother in there from Jersey. This might have been 78. So he was talking about, man, them B-word personalities. He was talking about East Coast hustling. So he's in Florida, he's from Jersey. And I'd never heard that before, but he was saying, man, them B-word personalities up in D.C., man, you can't do no pimping or nothing with them. They all got jobs and they bougie. And when you go to a party or something like that, they running the show. I said, good God Almighty. This is the first thing I heard about D.C. Before I even come here. Years. So, D.C., but when you went to a federal prison, which you was in, it was always a group of people there from D.C. And D.C. at that time was small. It only had 500,000 people here. But the federal prisons all over was full of people from D.C. Because whatever crime you committed in D.C., you went to a federal prison because they have a county jail, they had Lorton, but they don't have, can you imagine all those people, the amount of brothers that they had locked up? They filled up the federal system, and there's only 500,000 people here. But anyway, about our neighbors, back to the point. If we don't some kind of way inform our neighbors about the environmental circumstances and all the things that are affecting them and how they affect them, right, then we're missing our job. Because our neighbors have a right. Even if they non-believers, they have one right on us. That's the right of a neighbor. But that's a big right. That means if we have a little bit of food, well, put some more water in it and stir it up and send them a plate, right? And you can't be cooking in your house and that smell blowing all over your neighbor's house, and then you know they're hungry over there. Right? You got to stir it up and go give them some. That's neighbors. Then if they need some money, if you can afford it, and if they actually, you have a responsibility to loan it if you can afford it, to loan them something. And you know the customs that we had a couple of generations ago were so Islamicized that it was unbelievable. You know, just think, in the South, everybody spoke to each other. How you doing? And you could sit down and start talking with somebody and never, seen them before. I mean, a good human-to-human conversation. And all the neighbors, if they ran out of eggs, butter, and sugar, those are the things that you could automatically go to your neighbor. Can you imagine that the door was left open for the milkman? Y'all probably don't remember milkman. They used to come, the milkman would put eggs and butter in your house. And your door was wide open. And you would let him, he would just come in and put the stuff in your house. Can you imagine? And in D.C., like all our neighborhoods, we didn't even lock the doors. That was a different neighborhood because we had all went through a certain, this wasn't just for black people, the whole society was like that. The whole society was like that. So we know the possibilities, but we can evolve even higher than that. Why? Well, how? If we educate, if we train, if we influence our neighbors. If we have the light and we don't share that light with our neighbor, we're not doing our job as a neighbor. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Laysa al-birra an tawallu wujuhukum kibala al-mashriqi al-maghribi lakina al-birra man amanta billah wal yawm al-akhirah. We read this before, that it is not piety, al-bir, that you turn your faces toward the east and the west. And it continues, but piety is those who believe in Allah and the last day. That's stating what our religion is. That's basically those who believe in Allah and the last day, Yawm al-Akhir. But it goes on, and the angels, and the book, and the prophets, and give money in spite of love for it, to relatives and orphans, to the poor and the wayfarer, to the beggars, and for the manumission of slaves, and perform the prayers and pay the zakat, and who fulfill their covenant when they make one, and are patient in adversity and affliction, and in the thick of fighting. Those are they who speak the truth, and those people are the God-fearing. So it's talking about same thing we've been talking about before, about righteousness and about goodness and about the righteousness of action. The righteousness of action. So if you believe in Allah, then you should serve humanity. And in fact, the question arises in the hadith, "Oh Allah, how could I visit you when you were sick?" Right? Because Allah can't get sick, right? So the answer, the response is, my servant was sick and you didn't visit them. Or my servant was hungry and you didn't feed them. You see what I mean? So if you have real iman, then it should be followed by amal, by works and by deeds. So the root or the fruit of all of this is the root being iman and the rest being amal. If I believe, then it's manifested through my deeds and through my work. But it's saying here, righteousness is not turning your face toward the east and the west. That's not the kind of ritualistic righteousness that the Quran is talking about. That's good. Qibla, the thing you face, Qibla in Arabic means to face or even to kiss. So that is not the essence of righteousness, that you turn your face toward the east and the west. But righteousness is to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then that righteousness is followed up by certain actions. So that means that Islam is not a spectator belief. So that's true piety, to believe in Allah in the last day, and the angels and the books and the prophets, and to give money, although you have a serious love for that money that you're giving away. You don't just like the money, you love it. But you give it away in spite of it to various peoples. First, the near relatives, orphans, the poor, the wayfarer, Ibn Sabil, the beggars, al-Masikin, Fia al-Rikab, the people Rikab, the neck, the people who are held in bondage, and you want to free them. You know, I was telling people years ago when we were raising money for Imam Jamil that you can actually give your zakat for bail and to get him released. His neck is in bondage. He's in bondage. And I like the commentators, Maulana Baldudi said in his commentary that you can raise money, bail money and all of that, right, can be used under those 8 categories of zakat. Can you imagine? And nobody else mentioned that, but we saw that in that we were doing the right thing. Okay. Then it talks about to be patient in adversity. This is a time of adversity. Patience during adversity and all other times of panic. We're living in that time right now. We're living in one of the key periods of history. Now, what we do now, or what we should be doing, what we could be doing, is teaching and training ourselves what we want the world to look like, and then move into that. We can write our own history. We've been talking for months, technically years, about writing our own history, writing ourselves into history. What part do we want to play in this American scene? We can see what America is going left. We can see the people who's running America. Do we want them to run our lives? Do we want those people? Do we want old Don to run our life? When Don just sitting right there telling you, oh yeah, we're going to get people back to work in a hurry. Why do you want people to go back to work in a hurry? Because he's worried about being reelected, and he knows that if he have a weak economy, he won't get reelected. And the people that's with him is the same way to all the Congress and all those people. They didn't give the companies trillions of dollars. They got $6 trillion in the pipeline. First, they just run away with that $2 trillion right away. Then they had the $2.5 trillion that they voted in last week or week before. And now, if you notice, the stock market keeps going up. Why? Because they done promised another $2 trillion into the stock market, and all the stock people know it. What do they know? They know they're going to be looked out for. We talked about it before. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And we also talked about you used to put money in the bank so the bank could loan money to other people to buy houses and things, and they would give you interest. You get 5, you get 10% interest, but you can't get that interest anymore. Why? Because the bank get money from the Fed, and the Fed give them money now is technically free. They can print that money. It's free for the bank. It's worthless. But this society, guy was talking about it the other day, he said, no, he said the Fed, they can print all that they want, and that's not real. So, but when they loan it to you, and you go into debt for buying something, they say debt is real. The money they print, it's not real. So if they say we're going to put all this money, they probably haven't even transferred nothing into nothing. That's just talk. But when the bank, they friends, loan you money, now that's real, because that's the debt. They say that's real. That ain't real. But debt is real. They say without debt, the society will disappear. They got, can you imagine? Most people are born in debt and they die in debt. And they're never liberated. And they got zillions of schemes. If you were old, you bought your house, paid for it in 30 years, then they got a reverse loan. And the people kind of sit there and they say, well, I don't want to leave the house to the kids, so I get a reverse loan. That means you can loan, you own the house, now you just living off that money. And you're kind of playing out when you're going to die, you don't know. But, right, your house keep getting more and more expensive, so you get more equity in it. And when the kids get your house, they don't have no more money in it. Why? Because you done got all the equity out of it, reverse loan. And they have these rich movie stars telling you, I've got my reverse loan, you can trust these people. Huh? Sure you can. That is real. Do you think anybody wants you to own everything that you have? That's impossible. Who owns everything? You know what? I think we're the only crew in D.C. Well, some of the rich joints might own their stuff now. But we own everything we got. We own it. They didn't want that to happen. Actually, we fooled them, and that's what happened. They wasn't paying attention. They were squeezing us on the other way. This hurts you, squeezing us so much. But we was all buying up everything around. And laughing because we planning ahead. When they looked up, they said, these Negroes own all of this property. And guess what? They own it in Southeast Washington. That means they bought it cheap, and it's now getting expensive. So we're going to go up on everything that they got to make them pay for that over and over again. And we're going to stop them from building. See, we had our way. We had already built over there. We'd have built up on 8th Street. We'd have built all around, right? Because that's where we was rolling, but they woke up on us. But how many people only own cars, only own house? They don't pay they have to pay light bill, gas bill, stuff like that. But they don't have any other bills. That's getting close to freedom. That's why we make the dua, oh Allah, we seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief, lack of strength and laziness, cowardice and negligence, and being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. Why is the Quran so serious about riba? Because the Quran says to prevent a circulation of wealth, right, amongst the rich. The rich get rich, the poor get poor, right? Oh, black people are dying by the thousands because carnivorous, or whatever they call it, is eating them up, right? It's also killing Latinos and the poor American Indians. And that's because of bad health care, because of this, because of that. Now, of course, we don't believe that. That may be a little corner of it. But if everything that pop up hits me, pretty soon I'm going to start thinking that somebody is designed, they're shooting at me. I'm a target, right? They're shooting at me. They can't hit me just every time, and they're just shooting up in the air or shooting around. If they hit me every time, they're shooting at me. That's all it is. So if black people are dying every time, they're shooting at black people. Well, no, it's not that. It's health. It's the bad health care, and the rich get that. Well, if you want to solve the problem, if the whole problem is on health care, like Obama Sanders said, right? We want to get everybody health care because the poor don't have, which is true, don't have good health care. Well, make us rich then. Solve the problem, right? You're America. We've been out of slavery 160, 70 years, right? You didn't have all that time. You didn't have all that time to fix this. How can you come back and say, this is a problem for 200 years? You mean you got a problem for the last 200 years, you ain't fixed it yet? You're not trying to fix it, right? If the problem is that the poor just get bad treatment, well, make us rich. Give us big jobs, right? Just make us rich. Then we'll have good, you don't have to, that solves the problem, right? If rich always gets the best of everything, then make us rich. Mix it up with the reparations, right? They're talking about. Make us rich. Solves the problem. It's very simple, right? They say, no. So who is they helping anyway, right now? Hold on. How much money then got down to the poor out of all them trillions, last couple of trillions? They said the welfare line, not welfare, the unemployment line is too long. And then they got a little sneaky stuff in there that is not a gift, it's a loan. And they got stuff on the companies that say, if you don't do it a certain way and use a certain amount on salaries, then you can't get. Because who that hurts? It hurts me and you. And guess what? The big rich folks don't have no restrictions. The trillions, the few hundred million they give us, got all kind of stuff on it. But the trillions, they don't have no restriction. They can do basically what they want. Remember, the thing about wealth is that when somebody gets too much, they can influence the laws, they can influence the Congress, they make everything, so what? They get richer. That's why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Why? Because the rich get in there, they game the society, it's what everybody knows. And they make every law, they make every Congress, they make all those people their people, and every vote they have is a vote for them. No matter what it looks like on paper, no matter what they say, the rich gonna get 10 times as much as you, even if it's free. And if they're gonna give you some money, they're gonna give it to them to loan it to you, so they get a piece of the money. I'm just telling you, this is stuff we know, this is stuff we hear. Okay, is this the world we want to live in? This is the question. This is not the world we want to live in? Then let's get busy and let's hook up a new one, hook up a better one. Let's begin to involve ourselves. You want your kids' life to be dependent on Donald Trump? What school they go to will depend on Donald Trump. How much health care they get will depend on Donald Trump or people like Don. I remember Don is just a buffoon. He's just a face. Look at the world looking at America today. America looks like a big bumbling idiot. Right? Every news conference Don gives is a session of clowning, a session of buffoonery and lying. It's the greatest show on earth. Why? He can't remember what he said the other day. He cannot remember. He just don't care. Can you imagine if you got a treaty with him or something, or with them, and Don walks in and he tears up the treaty, then he wants to make a treaty with North Korea, right? He wants to make a treaty with Afghanistan, right? He wants to make, how is that going to happen? They know he's a clown. They know he's a liar. They know as soon as it fits him, he's going to tear it up. So who's going to sign? Why do you think the Taliban, right now, they tell Don, yeah, Don, we're going to sign a treaty. Then they go blow up a whole crew of people the next day or that same time because they know he's lying. And they know if he double-crossed the government he's supporting, what do they think that they don't know? They're going to get double-crossed? This is what we prayed for. It's called manifestation of defects. Any system you got, if you put enough pressure on it, holes start to show, and now we have America on the world stage, and everybody's looking at it. That's what we have right now. The whole world is looking at America the Great. International buffoons, dummies, clowns, misfits, all those kind of people. We close by saying we talked a little bit about it last night, about identity. We have to identify the environmental circumstances that make up today and then clarify our position in that world. We have to write ourselves into history. Don't worry about whether the people all across the river or over that way in Maryland. It don't make no difference what they do. If we're the only ones that see what needs to be done, then let's do it. That's all we're saying. Let's do it to the best of our ability. Not to show people that we can do it, not all that, but because it's the right thing to do. So remember, nonviolent resistance has always been a part of our program. No matter what it sounds like. Alternative resistance. The world is moving our way. Now, a lot of the religious organizations is standing up. A lot of the social organizations, all of those are standing up to make the government weaker and trap the government into buffoonish behavior, and so that the people are free to do the good things in the society. We've been talking about it all the time, the Christians, the Muslims, and if the Yahoo want to play a part, he can play a part too, in making America good, not great. O Allah, we seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. We seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. We seek thy refuge from cowardice and negligence. We seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice us with what is lawful, keep from us what is prohibited with thy grace. Make us free from want of what is beside thee. Amen. We come at this time.